A child, when they walk in to a dental office, whether they've, maybe the first time ever seeing me, or maybe the first time ever, the Academy of Pediatric Dentistry, we have a policy. A child should have a dental home, just like a medical home, by or before the age of 1. So, I've got real little ones, and sometimes they come in just fascinated because the parents have read them books about going to the dentist, and or they're not, and the kids come in and they're terrified. And that's normal. It's a novel setting, and they're apprehensive sometimes. Well, I have a team. I have a staff from, my front desk, office manager Orla, smiling face. You can tell on the phone she's smiling all the time. And my staff, they come out and greet the kids, and we try to create a feeling of safety that the parents and the kids pick up on it right when they come in. And if they don't, that just makes the whole thing more difficult. So I rely a lot on my highly competent, well-trained staff, not just in the technical aspects of dentistry, but the cultural and personal, humane aspects. Because it's stressful day to day, but it's a magnificent. I call it a magnificent obsession. That what I do is fun. I mean, you got these kids and these families, and you're making a difference. And when I drilled cavities and got kids out of pain and stuff like that, that was rewarding too. But I just, being a day-to-day drill, fill, and build dentist was not that appealing to me. And especially with my nutrition background, understanding that tooth decay, oh my God, it's like 100% preventable. Humans never had it, appreciably anyway. I mean, there was here and there, you see it in the fossil record, but not much. So I just, even the anthropology thing, I was just sort of like, oh my God, this is how I want to make my living, putting out sugar fires. I say that, like, is that what I want to do all day long for the rest of my life? And it just, I think helping parents understand the processed food connection to not only unhealthy weight, but tooth decay and gum disease, and also better sleeping and better breathing health, and it's all in the same continuum. Is that there was really virtually no appreciable cavities in human beings until about 10, 12,000 years ago, which to me sounded like, wow, that's a long time ago. I had no clue that humans, at that time were thought to be, anatomically modern humans evolved away from chimpanzees 6 or 7 million years ago, and didn't become anatomically modern until about, then it was 100,000 years. Now we know it's maybe closer to 300,000 years ago. There were people like us that were alive. They didn't have cavities and they didn't have crooked teeth, which he didn't talk about crooked teeth. But cavities don't come along till 10 or 12,000 years ago, when we discovered how to grow, corn and cereal grains and wheat, and how to process it and separate the fiber and squeeze out the sugar. I'm doing some postdoctoral work in anthropology, and not just physical, biological anthropology, but cultural anthropology. And I found it to be true in my practice. It's like, I'm expanding. I'm doing orthodontic expansion on 2, 3, and 4-year-olds, because I know if you see a kid has a narrow jaw at that age, it will not get better any more than nearsightedness will get better after that. You never hear an eye doctor say, well, wait till they're driving a car to give them their first glasses. That would be medically indefensible. Well, I feel it's the same way with narrow jaws. You need, because it can correlate with their ability to sleep well and breathe well through their nose. Because we deal with, medically compromised children, that's part of my specialty. is that, yes, the first time I lost, a child, and I was a resident at the University of Iowa. And one of the things that was real important is we would make medical rounds on children who had cancer and were getting, chemotherapy, cytotoxic drugs. They were getting radiation, and they were getting what at the time we called it bone marrow transplants. And, these kids are, sometimes it's the last resort. And when they get a bone marrow transplant, they're really compromised. Like, they have no immune system until they get a new one from bone marrow. Well, the first time, her name was Laura, and this is a little kid. And my girlfriend at the time was a nurse in bone marrow transplant. And oh my God, we just bonded with this family. And it was just like, Dr. Kev or Michelle, if you guys get married, Laura will be your flower girl. And, it was just like, and then, oh my God, we would go in and her bed was empty, and, she had died. And it's like, oh God, that was just like, I'm a dentist, teeth die, do a root canal on it. But a little kid died, and I really, we took care of adults too. And I just remember, because nobody else was trained in dealing with the mouth problems that, people who are getting bone marrow transplants, whether they're adults or kids. So we would round on the adults. And I just remember Mr. Smith, who, he had his bone marrow transplant. Then he started working at JCPenney's, and I remember seeing him there. And then he came back in because he relapsed and he died. And it's like, oh my God, this is like, do I want to do this? And when I got a kid that's doing college visits or just got accepted to college, and I'll say, will you promise me one thing? Take at least one anthropology class, and especially if you're going into healthcare, you need to understand the evolutionary basis of disease and health. You just do. You need to understand. And I always give the example, looking at a disease from an evolutionary perspective rather than proximate cause. And I use fever. The proximate cause, the immediate underlying culprit, is you've got a germ entering into your bloodstream. It's a bacteria or a virus or something, and it raises your body temperature. Okay. And what do? The proximate cause is you take something that reduces fever and an antibiotic to kill the bug. Well, that's, looking at it and dealing with it from a proximate cause perspective. How about an evolutionary perspective? There's a whole discipline in medicine now called evolutionary medicine. And that's like natural selection, takes care of it. Well, fevers, God, they're just such a nuisance. Why didn't natural selection get rid of the fever mechanism? Well, how come? Because it makes life not only uncomfortable for us, it makes it impossible for the pathogen. And if you survive the fever, you will live long enough to pass on your genes and yourself become an ancestor. But if we didn't have the fever mechanism, we would have gone extinct. And she goes, Dad, the universe is talking to me. And it's like, oh my God, I just love that saying. I've heard it before, but never so close to home. And we're just sort of very practical people. I raised some Catholic. My wife's parents are from Ireland, and we thought a good Catholic education. I had Catholic roommates and always thought that was cool, even though I'm not Catholic. So it was just like, kind of spiritual and maybe religious, but Dad, the universe is talking to me. Well, the universe is out there. So, and we can see it. And recently I got the Scientific American about this new telescope and how far away we can see things. Well, she just kind of we've had this conversation now that not only can we see it, it may be looking back at us. And I don't know, it's kind of poetic.